In the theater of power and influence, few thinkers understood the human condition as deeply as Niccolò Machiavelli. Often misinterpreted as advocating cruelty or manipulation, Machiavelli instead offered raw truths about the dynamics of power, truths that remain relevant even centuries later. When considering the so-called weaknesses of women, it is crucial to approach the subject not through the lens of superiority, but through understanding. Because to master anything, especially another soul, one must first master oneself. To outsmart, everyone is not to deceive or dominate, but to elevate one's perception beyond the average. Machiavelli believed that appearances matter more than intentions, and that those who understand the emotional currents of others hold the keys to control. When it comes to women, society has painted 1,000 myths, that they are emotional, indecisive, driven by vanity, or guided by affection rather than reason. But the wise man knows these are not weaknesses, but vulnerabilities shared by all humans, amplified in different ways depending on context, upbringing, and biology. The first so-called weakness to understand is emotional sensitivity. Women, on average, have been socially conditioned to be more attuned to emotions. Not because they are weaker, but because their roles throughout history demanded it. To a Machiavellian mind, this means they are more responsive to tone, to intention, to underlying motives. If you seek to influence a woman, speak not only to her words, but to the emotions behind them. To manipulate emotion is not to lie, but to understand its root and harness it. But beware, true mastery lies in sincerity, not deception. The man who learns to regulate his own emotions gains an aura of calm that disarms even the most guarded heart. The second element is validation and perception. In a world that judges women harshly for both success and vulnerability, many have developed a heightened sensitivity to how they are perceived. This can be used for influence, but again, only by those who understand the mirror. Men too are slaves to validation, though they wear different masks. The Machiavellian man studies this need, not to exploit it, but to reveal its presence in himself. The less you seek approval, the more you command respect. Reflect this steadiness, and you become a figure around whom others orbit. Another trait, often described as a weakness, is attachment, the feminine tendency toward relational thinking, toward seeking safety and community. But here lies profound power. Women, through generations, have maintained civilization's emotional web. The man who understands this can build alliances with deep roots. If you treat every connection as a transaction, you may win battles, but lose the war. Instead, cultivate loyalty by offering stability, vision, and self-mastery. Then you become the rare man who inspires not just affection, but devotion. Then there is indecision, a term frequently thrown around to describe a woman's process of weighing emotional and practical factors simultaneously. But indecision is not ignorance, it is inner conflict. The Machiavellian man does not rush others into choices, but presents clarity where there is confusion. To guide a woman or anyone through indecision is not to overpower her will, but to become the stable force around which clarity emerges. Become that calm, confident source of insight, and your influence will be quietly profound. Above all, the deepest so-called weakness is trust. Women often extend trust cautiously, but once given, it is powerful. Do not betray it. The Machiavellian mistake is to believe that power comes from exploiting trust. True power comes from becoming trustworthy while never being naive. Machiavelli taught that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But he did not say love is weakness. Love is a weapon for those who wield it wisely. Earn trust with strength, protect it with integrity, and use it to build an empire of influence. In mastering the psychological dynamics often attributed to women, you master something deeper, your own capacity for awareness, restraint, and insight. Outsmarting others is not about tricks. It's about rising to a level of understanding so profound that others cannot hide their motives from you, and yet you no longer need to hide your own. This is the highest Machiavellian virtue, not cruelty, not deception, but vision. The weaknesses of women are not flaws, They are reflections of human patterns, and in mastering them, you learn to master men too, for beneath the masks where lie the same drives, to be seen, to be secure, to be significant. The man who sees through these illusions, who commands himself before others, who shapes perceptions with dignity and purpose, that is the man who outsmarts everyone. But the journey does not end at understanding the feminine soul or identifying the invisible strings that influence it. In truth, mastering the so-called weaknesses of women is only a mirror for the greater task, mastering human nature itself. Machiavelli's brilliance was not in teaching men how to manipulate others, but how to see the game that everyone is already playing, usually without even knowing they're in it. Let us now speak of vanity, often misinterpreted as a shallow concern for beauty or status. Yet vanity is not inherently feminine, nor is it a weakness exclusive to women. It is a hunger for significance, for validation of existence in a world that constantly reduces the individual to a role, a number, a label. Women, having historically been valued for appearance and compliance, often internalize this need more visibly. But the wise man sees that vanity lives in all people. It merely wears different clothes. In men, vanity appears as ego, arrogance, the need to be right, the refusal to ask for help. Understand vanity and you gain the ability to reflect to others the image they crave, while never becoming enslaved by the same hunger yourself. A truly Machiavellian mind does not seek power for its own sake. Power is not about domination. It is about freedom. Freedom from being manipulated. Freedom from being emotionally reactive. Freedom from needing others to approve of your choices. When you master the dynamics traditionally attributed to women, you become free from being surprised by them. You do not fall into resentment nor into dependence. You do not fear betrayal, because you do not place blind faith in those who have not earned it. You observe, you calculate, you move with intention, not with impulse. Now consider communication, another trait often labeled as feminine in its complexity. Women tend to communicate emotionally, contextually and relationally, while men are taught to be direct, factual and reserved. The error lies in seeing one as superior to the other. True psychological mastery comes when you can switch between modes, when you can listen with depth, speak with clarity, and appeal to both reason and emotion, depending on the moment. The Machiavellian does not speak to be heard. He speaks to be remembered. And what is remembered most deeply is not what is said, but how it made others feel. Learn this and you will command more than attention. You will command influence. It is also essential to understand projection, a phenomenon where individuals assign their internal conflicts onto others. Many men project their own insecurities onto women, blaming them for confusion, for emotional volatility, for testing boundaries. But every test is a reflection of your own strength. If a woman pushes you emotionally, she is not trying to destroy you. She is trying to find your center. Do you bend? Do you explode? Do you retreat? Or do you remain unmoved like the eye of the storm? The man who becomes his own anchor cannot be thrown off by the waves of another. She may rage, cry, accuse, seduce, but if you remain centered, not cold but sovereign, she will see in you what few men ever become: dependable, grounded, unshakable. Let us now address nurturing, often seen as a feminine virtue but rarely acknowledged as a form of power. A woman's ability to nurture, to care, to create emotional safety is not weakness, it is influence at its most subtle. If you wish to outsmart everyone, you must learn to nurture as well, not as a gesture of submission but as a calculated gift. When you can nurture the potential in others, you become a kingmaker, not just a king. This is how empires are built, not through fear alone but through loyalty, inspiration and emotional nourishment. The man who inspires devotion by protecting, by seeing others fully, by cultivating them into more than they were, he becomes unforgettable. Machiavelli also warned against naivete, and this is a lesson many men need to internalize. Do not confuse kindness for weakness, nor passion for permanence. A woman may love you deeply today and leave you coldly tomorrow, not because she is cruel, but because people evolve, needs change, circumstances shift. The Machiavellian man does not cry out at betrayal, he prepares for it. He does not hate the one who leaves, he learns from it. Every departure is a lesson in where you gave too much, where you failed to see the signs, where you mistook desire for loyalty. Study not only the woman, but your own blindness. That is the path to true invincibility. And finally, we must speak of femininity itself, not as weakness, but as contrast. Masculine and feminine forces are not in competition, they are polarities. In understanding the feminine, you define your masculine. In the softness of her presence, you sharpen your discipline. In the emotional chaos she might bring, you find the need for order. In her desire to be led, you find the calling to become worthy of leadership, not through force, but through certainty, purpose, and unwavering principles. The man who studies women to control them will fail. The man who studies women to understand himself will rise, for in every test, every emotional storm, every desire, every fear that arises in your relationships with women, there lies a reflection of your own depth or your lack of it. Do not ask how to make her stay. Ask how to become the man she would never want to leave. Do not seek to change her nature. Seek to understand its rhythm and to rise above reaction into clarity. To outsmart everyone, you must master what they do not see, even in themselves. Women, as emotional and psychological beings, are mirrors. And if you learn to read those mirrors without illusion, without resentment, without arrogance, you will know more about the world than any book could teach you. Machiavelli wrote, "Not for the masses, but for the discerning." If you've come this far, you may be one of the few ready to apply these truths. Let others chase approval, pleasure, control. You will chase mastery, not of others, but of self. For the man who masters himself cannot be ruled by anyone, woman, or man. And that, above all else, is the ultimate power. And now, we must delve even deeper into the undercurrents that shape all interactions between men and women. Not only the visible behaviors, but the silent forces behind them. You see, what most men fail to grasp is that women do not test you to hurt you. They test you to see if you are real. In a world where men crumble under pressure, where their words don't match their actions, where strength is claimed but never proven, she wants to know if you are what you say you are. Every contradiction, every moment of hesitation, every flicker of insecurity is silently recorded. She watches not with judgment, but with instinct. Her nature, like yours, seeks survival, but through connection, not domination. This is why your frame must be unbreakable. Your frame is the reality you carry with you, the way you interpret the world, hold your values, walk through conflict, and respond to uncertainty. When a woman challenges your frame, it is not an attack, it is a probe. Do you flinch when pushed? Do you raise your voice to prove dominance? Do you beg for peace or lash out in frustration? All of these are signs that your frame is weak, reactive, false. A man who has mastered himself needs no defense, because his presence is the defense. Machiavelli wrote that men should appear virtuous, but be willing to act against virtue when necessary. The surface must remain calm, composed, noble, but beneath it there must be steel. This is not deception, it is duality. You must become both the storm and the shelter, the lion and the fox. She will feel safe in your presence, not because you are soft, but because you are unshakable. Not because you are always kind, but because you are always controlled. This is the masculine edge she is unconsciously drawn to. Not just money, not just looks, but certainty. An internal empire no chaos can touch. But how do you build this empire within? By confronting every part of yourself you've ignored. The need for approval from women, the fear of rejection, the belief that your value is tied to her affection. All of this must be burned out of you like poison from the blood. She is not your source of worth. She is not your prize. She is your reflection. If you are empty, she will be unstable. If you are aimless, she will be unimpressed. If you are weak, she will test until she breaks you or walks away. This is not cruelty, it is nature. The truth is brutal but freeing. No one will save you. No woman can fix you. No love will complete you. You must become complete on your own. Only then does love become a choice, not a crutch. Only then can you engage with the feminine from a place of abundance, not hunger. When you stop needing her, you can finally see her, not through the lens of fantasy or fear, but clearly. You can listen without trying to fix. You can lead without dominating. You can walk away when needed, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Machiavelli also knew the importance of timing. There is a moment for patience and a moment for ruthless action. Many men lose power because they act too soon, or not at all. When a woman disrespects you, the weak man either retaliates emotionally or tolerates it indefinitely. The sovereign man observes, then decides. He neither tolerates the intolerable nor punishes from ego. He teaches people how to treat him by how he treats himself. Respect, like power, is not demanded. It is drawn out of others by the presence of someone who does not need it to validate his worth. And here lies another truth rarely spoken. Mystery is a form of control. Women are drawn to what they cannot fully predict, not because they want instability, but because the unknown challenges them. Most men are easy to figure out, needy, reactive, constantly seeking validation. But the man who carries silence like a weapon, who reveals himself slowly, who listens more than he speaks, this man is not boring. He is magnetic. He creates tension without effort. He builds desire not through constant pursuit, but through rare access. She must earn the depths of him, and in doing so she values them. But this mystery must be earned through discipline. You must first master delay, the power of withholding short-term pleasure for long-term influence. Every time you overshare to impress, rush into intimacy, or break your principles for attention, you weaken your hold on power. Instead, become a man whose boundaries are sacred, whose time is costly, whose life is already full. She must not become your purpose. She must become your addition. A woman can smell when she is your oxygen, and nothing repels feminine energy like emotional dependence masked as romantic intensity. And yet, do not misunderstand, this is not about coldness. Machiavelli did not advocate cruelty for its own sake. He understood that cruelty without purpose backfires. So too with women. Do not withhold affection to manipulate. Do not play games to create fear. Do not punish love to test control. These are tactics of weak men trying to appear strong. The truly powerful man does not use pain, he uses presence. His warmth is earned. His affection is rare. His commitment is sacred. And so when he gives it, it has weight. It is not casual. It is legacy. To master the weaknesses of women, you must master the weaknesses in yourself that respond to those traits. Her chaos will test your order. Her emotions will test your stillness. Her passion will test your discipline. Her beauty will test your focus. Her withdrawal will test your independence. Her silence will test your self-worth. And in every one of these trials, you are being given a choice. React like a boy or respond like a king. The Machiavellian man is not a villain. He is a strategist of life. He sees behind the curtain. He plays the long game. And in understanding women, not to control them, but to transcend the average man's blindness, you gain not only an edge in love, but an edge in every human interaction. Because influence is influence, and power is always psychological before it is practical. When you become the man who understands what others avoid, who acts where others hesitate, who restrains where others indulge, you no longer chase power. You become power, and no woman, no man, no crisis can take that from you. So rise, not just in knowledge, but in discipline. Study not to dominate women, but to elevate yourself. Master their patterns, but transcend your own. Because when you become unshakable, the world must bend around you. And that, as Machiavelli would tell you, is the art of outsmarting everyone. There is something you must understand now, if you have followed this path so far. Most men are not destroyed by others, but by themselves. They betray their own potential long before the world ever challenges it. They collapse under the weight of invisible expectations, fantasies about women, outdated cultural scripts, and emotional wounds they never faced. They hand over their power not by force, but by consent, seeking comfort instead of clarity, pleasure instead of purpose. Machiavelli would tell you that the most dangerous enemy is not the one outside the gates, but the one whispering inside your mind. That whisper tells you that you are nothing without her, that love is earned through sacrifice, that strength is proven by tolerating disrespect, that being needed is the same as being valued. And worst of all, it tells you that your worth is determined by how others, especially women, respond to you. This lie is the beginning of slavery, and you cannot master others while you remain a slave to their opinion. So the first war is always internal. Before you speak to a woman, lead a group, or claim authority, you must sit in silence and meet yourself fully. You must confront the parts of you that are desperate, needy, reactive, wounded. The boy who still seeks a mother in every lover. The adolescent who thinks conquest means power. The man who confuses lust for connection. You must look into those dark corners of yourself and say, "This is no longer who I am." Because if you don't, every woman you meet will trigger those unhealed shadows, and you will call it love, drama, or fate. But it is only repetition. A loop you haven't broken. The Machiavellian man breaks the loop, not by force but by awareness. He trains himself like a warrior trains his body, not to perform, but to prepare. He studies his emotions not to suppress them, but to rule over them. He rewires his beliefs not to please others, but to align with truth. And most importantly, he shapes his environment, choosing carefully who he lets close, who he lets in, and who he walks away from, no matter how tempting. Here is a truth few dare speak aloud. You must be willing to walk away from anything that weakens your power. That includes women who disrespect you. That includes friendships based on mediocrity. That includes habits that drain your mind and identity. And yes, that includes the version of yourself that still needs to be liked. Women are not the enemy. They are the test. The more grounded you are, the more clearly you will see that what you thought were weaknesses of women are simply openings, not flaws, but patterns. And those patterns are only dangerous to the man who does not know himself. You see, the emotionally reactive man will always be played. By women, by society, by his own impulses. He will be easy to seduce, easy to provoke, easy to control. But the man who cultivates detachment, not indifference but conscious separation, will begin to see the game. He will no longer be pulled into emotional traps. He will observe attraction without needing it. He will enjoy beauty without being ruled by it. He will receive love but never trade his soul for it. This man becomes rare, and therefore he becomes powerful. And now we must turn to something deeper still, the difference between influence and manipulation. Many confuse Machiavellian wisdom with the dark arts of control, but manipulation is short-term. It relies on lies, scarcity, fear. Influence, on the other hand, is built on perception, timing, and restraint. The man of influence doesn't need to convince you. He becomes the kind of person you want to follow. He leads not by demanding, but by embodying what others crave: order, purpose, conviction. To influence women or anyone, you must become a man of value, not just claim to be one. Your words must match your presence. Your intentions must be pure, even if your strategies are sharp. A woman will trust you when she feels that your power is not a threat to her, but a shield around her. Not because you are weak, but because your strength is under control. That is what makes her feel safe, not your promises, not your poetry, your grounded, intentional energy. And here's what few understand. Women are intuitive. They may not always know why they feel what they feel, but they feel deeply. If your energy is desperate, they will recoil, even if your words are charming. If your desire is needy, they will withdraw, even if your actions are generous. If your strength is fake, they will test you until it cracks. You don't need to be perfect, but you must be real, honest, present, rooted, because once a woman knows you are solid, truly solid, not only in strength, but in values, direction, purpose, then her natural chaos becomes harmony. She softens, she follows. Not because you asked her to, but because she feels safe doing so. And this is the essence of true masculine influence. It's not about domination, it's about alignment. You are the tree, she is the wind. You hold your place. You do not chase, bend, or break. And so she dances around you, she respects you, she desires you, she trusts you. Why? Because you trust yourself. And this brings us to the final truth for now. You must be dangerous, but controlled. The Machiavellian. Man is not harmless. He is capable of great destruction, great seduction, great ambition, but he tempers it with discipline. He knows when to strike, when to wait, when to disappear. His power is not loud. It is quiet, like a blade behind the curtain, because when a man knows what he can do, he no longer needs to prove it. This is how you outsmart everyone, not by out-talking them or overpowering them, but by outlasting them, outseeing them, and outdisciplining yourself. Women will come and go. Opportunities will rise and fall. But your sovereignty, if built correctly, remains. So become that man. Become the one who sees the game, but plays with honor. Who knows the patterns, but moves with integrity. Who masters others only after mastering himself. That is not just Machiavellian, that is eternal. Once you understand the laws of psychological gravity, you stop fighting them. You stop begging people to love you. You stop pleading for validation. You stop complaining when the world doesn't bend to your soft requests. You realize everything obeys power, and power obeys principle. Men who are guided by their fleeting emotions are doomed to obey those who are guided by structure, vision, and control. This is the brutal arithmetic of reality, and it is never wrong. Now look closely at the modern man, overstimulated, overexposed, underfocused, drowned in digital dopamine, addicted to shallow approval, constantly chasing women who do not respect him, wasting his seed, his energy, his time, thinking these small pleasures are signs of success. But pleasure is not success. Pleasure is a test. The more pleasure you are offered, the more dangerous your position becomes, because only the weak man consumes everything he is offered. The strong man chooses, he withholds, he disciplines, he watches the room, not because he fears it, but because he owns himself first. The Machiavellian man never surrenders to impulse. He uses impulse as information. He reads it. He watches what it tempts him toward, and then decides whether that temptation serves his empire. And if it doesn't, he doesn't touch it. Not because he can't, but because he won't. That is real strength. That is rare. That is the kind of man that women don't forget even if they try. You see, most women have met many men who want them, but very few men who can lead them. Wanting a woman is nothing special. Every man wants her. Every man chases her curves, her attention, her body. But the man who can lead her, that man doesn't need to chase. His energy pulls her in like gravity, because she senses that being with him doesn't mean chaos. It means direction, order, purpose, meaning. That is what the feminine craves. A man who walks into a room and changes its rhythm without saying a word. A man who is so deeply rooted in himself that he does not need her, yet still chooses her, not for pleasure, not for escape, but because she aligns with the path he already walks. And now we arrive at something even deeper, the discipline of emotional detachment. This is not coldness, this is not apathy, this is clarity. If you do not master your emotions will be used against you, by women, by enemies, by life itself. Every manipulation you've ever experienced only worked because it found a wound. Every betrayal only hurt because it landed where your identity was exposed. And this is why the sovereign man closes every door that makes him vulnerable to others. Control. He does not hide, he fortifies, he does not shut down, he sharpens. You must no longer fear loss. You must no longer cling to comfort. You must no longer need others to agree with your path. Because once you do, your path is no longer yours. You have handed the map to someone else. So how do you make your power untouchable? You remove your dependencies. You stop building your life around who stays or who leaves. You stop leaking your energy into arguments, into validation loops, into emotional spirals. You no longer try to convince people to treat you well. You simply act decisively when they don't. You no longer warn. You walk. And women feel this. They can sense when you are no longer a prisoner to your need for them. Ironically, this is when they often want you most, not because you're withholding, but because you are free. And freedom is magnetic. But now you are immune. You do not bend to affection. You do not collapse under attention. You see clearly. You see the pattern. You remain calm while others get drunk on emotion. This calmness, it is not natural, it must be forged. It must be earned through silence, through self-denial, through heartbreak, through late nights alone when every cell in your body screams to call her. And you don't. You sit. You breathe. You remember who you are. Only then are you no longer a man playing a role. You are the role. You no longer fake strength, you are strength, and no woman, no crisis, no rejection can change that. And now, look around you. Look at the men who claim to be powerful, loud, emotional, addicted to validation. They fall at the first sign of resistance. Why? Because they trained for comfort, not for conquest. They trained for pleasure, not for presence. They trained for applause, not for solitude. You must be different. You must become the man who trains for loss because you know everything real can be rebuilt. You train for silence because silence teaches you what noise hides. You train for rejection because rejection reveals your true foundation. You train for war because peace is temporary. And with this training, something profound begins to happen. Women stop confusing you with boys. You stop blending in. You become dangerous, not through chaos, but through calm. You don't talk much. You listen, you don't chase, you observe, you don't brag, you build. And that's when your presence alone becomes a challenge to others. Not because you try to dominate, but because your very existence reflects their lack of discipline. And they will hate you for it or be drawn to you. Both are signs that you are doing it right. Understand this. The more you master yourself, the more the world will project onto you. They will call you cold, controlling, arrogant, but they are not describing you, they are describing their own discomfort in the face of your power. Let them speak. You stay quiet. Let them gossip. You stay focused. Let them fall in love with the mask they created for you. You simply keep building. This is the legacy of the Machiavellian mind, not cruelty but clarity. Not deception but restraint. Not manipulation but magnetism. So keep walking. Deeper into mastery, deeper into silence, deeper into vision. Because in a world full of noise, the man who moves without explaining himself is the loudest of all. And so it ends, not with applause, not with fireworks, but with silence. The kind of silence that follows revelation. The kind of silence that separates who you were from who you are about to become. There's nothing more to explain now. You've seen the patterns, you've heard the truths, you've faced the shadows. What comes next is not about women, power, or strategy. It's about you, quietly, unapologetically, unshakably. The lessons are simple, though never easy. Master yourself or be mastered by others. Discipline your emotions or live as their hostage. Detach from need or be used by it. Walk away when necessary or stay and be devoured. Choose truth over comfort every time, and above all, become the man no one controls. Not because you dominate, but because you no longer beg. Not because you manipulate, but because you understand. Not because you seek validation, but because you know your value. In silence, in solitude, in stillness. You now know that most men remain boys forever because they never learned how to sit with pain without numbing it. Because they never walked away from the wrong woman and stood alone long enough to become something real. Because they feared the consequences of their own greatness more than they feared mediocrity. But you, if you've made it this far, you're not most men anymore. You've started to see the game. And more importantly, you've remembered that you are not a pawn, not even a king. You are the one who walks away from the board entirely, builds his own, and plays only when it serves his higher purpose. This is where you stop talking. This is where you stop performing. This is where you stop proving. And this, right here, is where you begin. Walk like a storm, love like a leader, see everything, need nothing, build endlessly. Let the world feel the weight of your presence or your absence, but never again. Your weakness. The game is yours now. Play it well and walk away when needed, without fear, without noise, and without ever looking back.